In this video, I'm going to show you ways that I have made this paper mache bird. Okay, wait, which one? That's right. All of them look different from each other, and yours will too. I'm going to give you lots of suggestions of materials to use and ways to make, but of course, you're going to look around you and find the best ways for you. Let's first go over the materials I'm going to be using. First, I'm going to start out with cardboard and some craft sticks. Some masking tape is going to be needed, and some paper towel. We're going to use this to make the base for our bird. Then we're going to paper mache using Elmer's glue paper mache paste, but of course find what works for you, and some newspaper, or in this case I'm using dictionary paper. You can use crepe paper as well on this portion of your sculpture. Then we're going to use lots and lots of colored paper and some craft glue to finish out our bird. Okay, we're going to get started with what I call the base of our bird. So we will need some cardboard or a sturdier paper. Cardboard actually works pretty good for this. And you'll need some scissors that can actually cut cardboard. And you're thinking about kind of the oval of the shape of the body and head and even tail. Then onto our bird, we're going to add some craft sticks. We are going to use masking tape to do so, and take a look at how I rip the masking tape. I tear it like paper. I'm not tugging on it. That allows me to rip this off really nice like that. I'm going to actually rip quite a few before I start adding the tape and the paper onto my cardboard. Now that I have that all set up and I'm ready to rock and roll, I'm going to tape these craft sticks right in place and just make sure that they're not going to move around. Paper towel is a really good option for this. You can use paper as well, or maybe a different type of paper towel, but this is easy to manipulate and move around. We are going to think about the head, the body, and the tail of our bird, and making sure that everything we tape down is taped down really well. So around the back side of the cardboard is going to help it stay really nice and tight. I'll continue to work by adding more and more paper towel and tape, of course, onto the base. I'll add that paper towel and tape to both sides. So I'm trying to make this look very three-dimensional. Okay, here we have the final base. I can set this aside and get ready for paper mache. Now for the paper mache. I have mixed up some Elmer's paper mache paste. This is that light kind of paste that is sitting beside my sculpture. And I'm using dictionary papers that I cut up ahead of time. But you can use newspaper, and you saw me kind of rip it down. You don't have to cut these ahead of time. You can rip the paper. That works actually pretty darn good as well. Once we put our paper into that paper mache paste, we are going to take our fingers and get rid of the excess, the extra paper paste. And make sure that both sides of our paper is completely covered with the paste. Once I have that done and I have a nice slimy piece of paper, I'm going to place it onto my base and wrap it around. I'm going to repeat this so many times, putting this into the paste, wiping off the excess, and bringing it over to my base. Notice this time I'm crisscrossing my pieces of paper. The more overlapping and crisscrossing in different directions, the better and stronger this sculpture will be. Now I have a lot of paste on my sculpture right now, so what I'm doing is taking a dry piece of paper and wrapping it around, but I can use a little bit of extra paste to kind of seal it in place. So I just put some on my fingers and I'm just rubbing on the paper to make sure that it stays really good and slimy and wet, right? We want it to be very nice and wet with the paste. Okay, notice the other thing that I'm doing. I'm adding the paper to both sides of my sculpture, and I'm continuously pressing down and kind of smoothing out the paper. continuously doing that. These things, if you continue to do this with your paper mache, you are going to have such a strong sculpture. All right, I'm getting most of the body done and I'm moving on to the wings. I want to assure that these craft sticks that I put in there are going to stay in place. So I'm using some paper and paper mache to just kind of support that a little bit more. So notice the paper starts on the bird body and then I bring it around and around the craft stick. I want to do this more than once, and that's going to secure this in place. It doesn't even really matter if you go all the way out to the end of your wing or craft stick, but we want to make sure that it's attached to the body really well. So this is a good way to assure that. All right, now for the final touches, just kind of looking, is there any place that could just use a little extra paper? It doesn't hurt to go over with a couple more layers. So once I have that done and I've smoothed out all my paper, I need to do that final detail of just making sure that I can identify this next time, because if we're in a class with a lot of students, we need to make sure that our name is on it someplace. So we can write our name on a piece of paper and then just take that paper mache, put it on both sides, and make sure that it is on our bird body someplace. And we're just going to paper mache it down like we have been, making sure that we smooth out the top and that it's filled with the paste. That should work really well. When I was working with young artists, I decided that we could do another layer onto our birds just to make it even more strong. And I happen to have a ton of crepe paper. This is called crepe paper or party streamers. So we are going to use that. Use what's around you, right? So I had some crepe paper. We cut this crepe paper up and we started paper macheing that on as well. You could use tissue paper or you could even paint this at this point. There's lots of different directions you could go. The crepe paper or tissue paper is a lot more difficult than what I have been doing. It helped my students to have a dry sculpture so that we could add this very thin, light tissue paper or crepe paper on top. Now take a look. I'm even going to show you the difficulty I have when using this. See, it's so picky. It's okay to have just paper. It's okay to add the color. You can do what works for you. For some students, this was pretty frustrating. So if it's too frustrating for you, don't worry about it. But it did make our sculptures really, really strong and added some beautiful color to it. So let me just show you. I'm basically doing the exact same thing. I'm overlapping my crepe paper as much as possible. I'm making sure that I smooth that paper down to my sculpture, and I'm making sure that all areas are covered with the color because I want it to be consistent. I'm also going to add some of this crepe paper on to the wing areas. So that craft stick that we added the paper on, I'm doing that again for the sides of my bird. Okay. Now just kind of placing down those last few details, and of course I need my name on this again because now I've covered up my name, so I need another one. I think this time I'm going to place my name on the wing area because I'll be covering that up next time, so it won't damage the final result. I can just kind of place that here with some paper mache, keep it in place. Awesome. Okay, now we'll know it's mine. This is a pretty exciting part of this sculpture. We are going to finish it up. It is dry. It must be dry for this part. And I decided to use a base that I did not have crepe paper on. So I am going to start by thinking, okay, how do I want this bird to be? Am I going to have this bird facing forward or is it going to be flying through the air? Okay, then I have to decide how I want those eyes. If my bird is flying through the air, I'm going to put eyes on either side, on both sides of the bird. If my bird is looking forward, then they might be next to each other like what I showed in those first examples right there. I'm not just going to draw one eye. I'm going to draw several so that I can pick the one that's actually going to work the best for my bird. Cutting them out and just kind of placing them in place on my sculpture with craft glue is going to be perfect. Did you see I had some tape on there? I always lose the lids, so tape is going to work really well. Craft glue is thicker than normal, like white glue, so I need to allow that glue to come all the way down to the bottom of uh, the container so that I can use it. Using a little bit of glue on my finger and smearing it around is going to keep it really nice and tight. And take a look. Do you see how I put that glue in that glass bottle? That lets the glue stay down towards the bottom, and because it's thicker, I'm not worried about it like running all over the place. But it does really help me out when I'm using craft glue for a sculpture like this. Okay, we're going to think about the beak. Oh my goodness, if you do your research, you're going to notice that there's so many different styles and shapes of bird beaks. So you're going to kind of experiment. Grab some paper, try some different shapes, put it on your sculpture, take a look at it. Try some different techniques. This time I'm going to cut my paper as well as fold it. Do you see that? I folded it. I'm going to give it a little cut. Okay, actually, yeah, this kind of works better for me. So I think this is a good fit for my bird. I'm going to add some of that craft glue on. See how easy that came out because I had it upside down? Yep, that works well. Now I'm going to need patience. Craft glue needs me to hold it in place for a period of time. Yep, I have the beak on there. Now it's pretty secure. I even added a lower part to the beak so it looks like it can open up its mouth and start singing. Now we're going to start working on the wings. So I'm taking my piece of paper and kind of eyeballing it. How big do I want this wing to be? Think bigger than smaller. You can always cut away. Now, notice I folded that in half because I'm going to be wrapping it around the craft stick. So I'm going to take two of them because I need two wings, two pieces of paper, put them right next to each other, and then I can draw and cut my wings out. When I have the two pieces of paper together, this is going to allow for both of those to be exactly the same. So taking my scissor, cutting off little parts at a time is helpful so that you can get some really nice cuts in there. And like I said, I'm thinking bigger because I can always cut away if I need to. All right, now get rid of some of those scraps and boom, I have two wings. I'm going to kind of flip that one inside out because I had some drawing on there, so that's going to keep the drawing on the inside. Okay, do you see my vision? We are going to be putting that wing right there, using the craft glue, getting it on there. I think I'll do both sides just to make sure it's going to stick. Placing it over that craft stick and using my, yep, you guessed it, patience again. I have to hold this in place for a period of time to make sure that the glue does its job. It holds tight to each other. Okay, this is starting to look like a bird. I love it. Now, I'm going to add the tail, and for me, I want some kind of consistency for my bird. So I'm going to go ahead and use purple again and think about maybe some of the things I learned when I was making the beak. In this case, I folded my piece of paper again. I'm thinking about a nice big tail coming off from my bird, and let's see how that looks. Okay, if I open that up, place it on the back. Yep, that's exactly what I want. I want it nice and big. Making a statement with this tail. Adding the craft glue, holding it down, being very, very patient to assure that it'll stick in place. Now, I have some extra time, so I'm going to make this extra special. I'm going to add some blue this time and kind of repeat the same thing. I'm adding some more feathers, maybe adding it on top of the feathers that I already have, making it three-dimensional. And I'm even going to put just a cute little area up on the top with a feather. Ooh, I am so happy with that. That turned out great, exactly how I wanted it. If you are thinking about displaying your birds, these are some ways to do that. I like to use what's around my house or around my classroom, and we have some paper clips around. So you can see me kind of bending those paper clips so that they can work as a hinge. I'm putting some hot glue down, and hot glue, I have been doing this for my students, but it depends on what your students are capable of or how old they are. They can maybe use the hot glue as well. Notice I have part of that paper clip down on the bird, and then I have part sticking up. This is going to allow me to have two places to run my string through. If I just put one paper clip on this, the bird is going to tend to either go forward or backwards. It's probably not going to sit really well when I go to hang this up. So I'm adding two so I can create kind of this triangle with a string between the two. Now, I do not want to hang this until that glue is 100% cured. It's very, very cold and is holding nice and tight. And you can see how that string kind of goes through each of the paper clips and will be able to be hung. Maybe you had your bird facing forward. Well, if that's the case, you can put a craft stick down at the bottom using hot glue again. And then this part's a little challenging, but I added some wire on the stick going up over my bird and back to the stick again, and adding some hot glue to just secure that in place. I would love to see what you create at your home or in your classroom. You can go ahead and tag me on Instagram at MiniMatisse Art, and I'd just love to see and celebrate with you as you make this sculpture.